Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Momentum Finance channel. My name is Mo, and today I'm honored and excited to be welcoming Philippe to the show. Philippe is a Blossom ambassador. He's an investor who started very young. Former real estate investor, seems like now mostly stock equities market investor. Like I said, an ambassador. Definitely made some names in the province where how you operated in terms of rental properties and whatnot. We'll go through all of that shortly.
Thank you. I appreciate Mo. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for having me. It's an honor and it's a pleasure. And this is actually one of my very first interviews with anyone within the Blossom community. So it's fun. And I know you were just telling me Canadian and T-shirt was right before me.
yes.
So I have big shoes to fill here.
Really looking forward to that. I know you bring a lot to the table. I'm looking forward to this conversation. For those who may not know you as well, Philippe, though, why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are, and we'll go from there.
Of course, yeah. So a lot of people know me as Flip Flop Finance online. The reason the name come up is because my name's Philippe, and they say it's a really bad joke, but it's what do you call a Frenchman wearing flip flops? And it's Philippe Flop. And I said, you know what, I'm going to stick to that. And I really started on Blossom about a year and a half ago. I think July of 2024 is when I discovered the app. I just randomly started posting and, and kind of giving an update on my personal financial journey. And like you say, I started very young, which was very fortunate of me. And, now I just turned 34. So I'm 20 years into the markets at this point, and 20 years of saving.
Incredible.
And it's always been a lifelong journey of me to want to reach financial independence and retire early and all that fun stuff. It's always been a passion of mine. It's something that everyone's known me for, even all throughout high school and university and well into my career. I'm the go-to guy when it comes to finance and stuff. So I'm happy to be able to share some of the things I've learned over the years, the good and the bad, the ups and downs, and so forth.
That's amazing. And I think you've been featured on a few, at least that I saw, like articles, posts here and there on different platforms.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like I was an influencer before being an influencer was a thing, to a certain degree. But I was featured in Money Sense. I don't know if you remember that magazine. It was a printed magazine from the early 2000 or the mid 2010s, and so I think I was on their 2014 edition, and they would always feature Canadian success stories of, just any type of financial accomplishment that people had. Some of them were like paying down debt, or some of them were retiring early. Mine was that I had saved at the time like $100,000 by the age of 22. So it was kind of I think a round number that people liked and a relatively early age. So after, they wrote that article, I think City TV picked it up and then did an actual video on me where they came over to my place and they kind of interviewed me and so forth.
That's so cool.
And then nothing for 10 years. And then now I'm back.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see what kind of energy I can bring for this.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it, but one of your recent posts on Blossom, we saw that definitely your investment that you focus mostly on equities market definitely grew tremendously since
Absolutely,
then. So we might get to it for sure as well as part of this chat. But hey, I want to go back to your early days, like back in when you were only about in your 20s. I think I read correctly that you were one of the youngest, essentially, landlords in your region. Much so, I think it was even featured in one of the articles from your university, I think from your college that you were attending. What made you essentially invest in this real estate at such a young age?
Yeah, so it's funny because if you even step back before that, I started investing when I was in my early teens. I read The Wealthy Barber when I was 14 years old, thanks to a history teacher who recommended me reading the book. So, I started understanding the personal finance space and the saving, paying yourself first, investing. So I started buying, GICs at the time. I would get an interest rate every month. And I started buying mutual funds. At the time, we didn't have index funds or ETFs. And I kept seeing real estate pop up everywhere. This was also, like I say, 2012 or so. Mm-hmm. And you being from Ontario, you probably know this is when the whole real estate craze kind of started kicking in. So I had an opportunity because family friends of ours, they were downsizing from their home and they wanted to rent. And, they casually mentioned, if you know anywhere or anyone who wants to rent a property, please let us know. And there was like a light bulb moment in my head. It was like, I could just buy a property and rent it out to you. That seems like a reasonable thing to do as a 20-year-old university student, not knowing whether or not I could or not. So, I went to the bank and I kind of explained to them the situation. And they said, it's tough because you're a student, but, I had been working for years before that. And I worked relatively a lot even while in university. So I had like almost $40,000 of T4 income on my
That's very
NOAs.
decent for back in the years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then on top of that, I guess the bank lady kind of liked me. I was much better looking back then, so that probably would have helped. But she said, considering you're going to be buying this to rent it out, we can use the rental income to essentially help you
Cash flow
approve
part.
for the mortgage. Exactly. And at the time, the beauty of it is that houses were like 200 grand. So this was actually like a strata condominium townhomes.
Yeah.
The purchase price was like 198,000. I ended up having to overpay to like 105 or 205, sorry. But yeah, long story short, I bought it, rented it out to family friends of ours. And, of course, a year later, they moved out because they wanted to buy a place. And now I was stuck being landlord. And I held on to that property for 12 years. And over the years, I started accumulating other properties. And that's what but that's what really got me started. Essentially, It's like, thanks to those people, and I still talk to them. Unfortunately, one of them passed away, but the other gentleman's in his 90s now. And they're, like I said, they're family friends of ours. I still talk to them. And that's what kind of got me into the whole real estate space.
That's amazing. And it's so incredible, like such an engagement. You saw, a problem or challenge for a family friend and think, how can I turn it into an opportunity that helps them, but also
benefits me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. I was breaking even on the property, which at the time was great. And I mean, of course, the property had tripled in value since after selling it, since I bought it. And there was all these leverage capabilities. I was refinancing it every couple of years and rebuying something else or putting money in the stock market. So I have to say that one property definitely had propelled me to where I am today. If it wasn't for that, I definitely would not be where I am today. So,
And
well,
Philip,
thank you.
you grew up in family, essentially, your parents seem to be very well business people, right? So I think, if I recall correctly, they had a family-run restaurant, and essentially a lot of that hard work ethics that
Yes.
comes with it.
Yeah.
What were some of those early money lessons that you learned from your parents growing up?
Definitely. Yeah. So long story short, I grew up in a family business. It was a restaurant. And ever since the day I was born, my parents had it up until a few years ago. And it's funny that you say they were business people because quite frankly, they were entrepreneurs and they ran a restaurant out of this labor of love. But they weren't really business people in terms of like, let's maximize capital and let's make as much money as possible. It was really a business of just, and once again, my parents are French. So you have to understand the cultural difference where it's like, let's own a business that, makes enough money that can pay our bills. We can go on a vacation and we can live well. But they did teach me the value for sure of working hard because they came from a country and their parents went through the war. And it was essentially just like working hard is all people knew to a certain degree, back in the day. So working hard was one thing. And then saving your money was the other thing. It was like save for a rainy day. You never know when you're going to need this money. Life can change overnight. And we'll go into that because it's definitely happened to me. And yeah, that definitely also propelled me in a way to have a mentality shift of knowing that I better save a portion of every dollar that comes through my account because you never know when you'll need it. And eventually when you start learning how to invest, you can then grow it, which is the beauty of it. So definitely working hard and saving money is like the two main things that I was taught from a young age.
And you
so for that, I'm thankful to my parents.
Yeah, you
That's the one thing they did right.
You definitely took it to heart, right? So you can see that, like, your trajectory, how you come. We're gonna go there, how you actually that rainy fund came to support you. Before that, though, you did mention earlier that even as in your teens you started working. So this is something that I know there are folks that do that, but there are folks that maybe they're not as familiar with it. Do you mind sharing, like, what are some of the different types of job that maybe you worked on, and then more importantly, I would say, what those type of early jobs taught you that helped you throughout your career?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny. It's ever since I discovered this concept of of like money can make money. Part of it was through the Wealthy Barber, where it's the compounding effect, where it's like, if you have $1,000 and you make 5% a year on it, you've now made $50. And it's like a light bulb moment that struck. And it's like, if only I could accumulate as much money as possible, I could then make more money on that money. And it's like this infinite money loop glitch in the matrix, whatever you want to call it. So making money as a young kid was always a priority of mine. So I did what I could to just make money legally, but any job or any little opportunity that someone threw at me, I would take on. And, I could go on for an hour talking about all my little jobs that I did throughout, as a teen and a young adult. But, anything you can think of, mowing lawns and shoveling driveways. And, I had detailed cars for a moment. I was helping people clean out their basements, and then I worked traditional jobs. Like I worked at Tim Hortons, and I worked for a banquet hall in the kitchen. And then I worked for the bar in that kitchen, in that banquet hall. So I became like a bar manager. And it's just all these little jobs. I learned two things. It's you learn definitely that working is hard, in the sense that when you're physically working, it takes a toll on your body. Even when you're young, it's like, wow, I'm tired, and you realize the value of a dollar, because it's like when you put in 8 hours of your day and you walk out of there with $100 in your pocket, and you're like, wow, the value of that $100 is 8 hours of my time that I will never have again. So what can I do now with that $100 that will benefit me for the future?
Really, learning about those things early on and making that connection early on is going to be a huge game changer, as opposed to, let's say someone who maybe didn't start working or didn't have to start working, and then maybe realize only these lessons later down the road. I would say it has some implications, of course, on how they see world, how they see the importance of money.
It's like anything in life, right? If the earlier you do it, the better off you probably will be. Whether you start treating your health correctly and working and studying and things like that, it's the time effects of anything in life is beneficial to you.
100%. It reminds me of, I don't know if you read that book. You know what I'm talking about. I'm going with this. Die with Zero, probably.
What? I know of it. Yeah. I have not read it.
Yeah.
But, if you recommend it, then I'll...
it's a very good book.
I'll buy it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good book. And honestly, I don't know if I can say it on camera, but you can find audiobooks even as well, if you're an audiobook person, available fairly easily. The Bill Perkins author has been on a variety of podcasts. And even if you haven't read the book, even listening to some of those podcast interviews, very, very interesting. I would caution, though, I don't know if it was in the book that way, but at least for sure on the podcast, he's very much, he swears quite a bit, and he's very comfortable with his language from that, but he seems to be very nice individual in terms of listening to. So I really enjoyed some of those conversations. I'm going to go there, though, because one concept of that book is around, you talked about almost like time bucketing, right, of your money. Like, your money can perhaps do certain things and bring the most. He goes for always the notion of the maximum fulfillment, net fulfillment in life, as opposed to net worth per se. And he's not saying net worth is not important, but he's saying, okay, you might have all the net worth, but if you're not fulfilling your dreams or what you want to aspire to, you might not be able to do that in a later point. Or if you do, it's not probably the most optimal. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenge that you had with your health, right? And you were sharing that on the Blossom platform, with the notion of, you wanted to reflect on it. So, and I love that you took the time to actually internalize it and share how some aspects of financial planning came handy. Do you mind sharing a little bit more, as much as you're comfortable, and more importantly, maybe some of the learnings and reflections that you have?
Yeah, definitely. So, long story short, in early 2004, I was diagnosed with stage 2 testicular cancer. So, they tell you that on a Friday, and then they tell you on Monday you have to start chemotherapy. So you have like 48 hours to get your shit together, to then know that for an extended period of time, you're not going to be the way you are. So it's definitely it's kind of these life-altering events that happen, because, not having your health you really realize that when you don't have your health, you have nothing. It's simple as that. And you see it with everyone, these even, you look at someone like Steve Jobs, billionaire, head honcho of a big company, pancreatic cancer, dead, and it's money does not solve health to a certain degree. It helps navigate it. And in my case, it did. Luckily what I had was curable. It was just It was just the concept of I had to take several months off. I had to go through 21 treatments of chemotherapy, and then everything went well after. But it was an extended period of time where I wasn't working, I wasn't earning an income, I wasn't myself, and have, you know, we always talk about these emergency funds. It's like having an emergency fund helped out, because when you stop, life doesn't stop around you. So my mortgage was still coming in every month, my property taxes, my utility bills, my, you know, my insurance, like everything keeps coming in. And not everyone's fortunate with having beautiful benefits at work that will cover all your expenses. And most of the times they don't even cover all your expenses anyways. And you just realize that, yeah, any type of health condition that comes up will definitely impact your life. And it makes you reprograms your brain to realize what is very important in life. Health is up there for sure.
It's super important. I you get to see it even as soon as you start having a cold. You started like, man, like life is not the same. And I mean, in your case, obviously, it's much more impactful. Have you made decisions differently after that recovery? Like, how did it actually impact, in other words, your outlook on life?
Yeah, it's funny because because it's so sudden. When things, you know, we love to plan as humans, and I mean, I'm a type A personality, so I plan everything, you know, weeks and months and years ahead of time. And this is something that happens overnight, and you can't plan for it. So you know, the things that I've kind of came to realize is you know, number one, you almost have to plan for the worst. You know, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And that's probably with anything in life. And, you know, like a small change I did, for instance, is I didn't even have a will before that, you know, and it's, you know, not to say that I was going to die, but it's like, I mean, I could get hit by a car any day of the week, and I didn't have like an official will. And, you know, and I'm at an age now where, you know, I have assets, I have a car, I have a house, and I have, you know, multiple accounts, and, you know, it would get very complicated if I did have to pass away. So you realize how you sometimes need to plan ahead of time for the, you know, hopefully these things don't happen to you, but if it does happen, are you prepared for it?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, sometimes when we are young, we don't think about these things, but life moments, or maybe even a family member being impacted, it might remind us like, oh, you know what? It could happen to anybody. It could happen to a friend. It happened to families. I might, of course, to your point, you hope that it doesn't happen, but you want to be prepared. You did mention as part of that, I think that, you know, at the time you didn't have any other insurances like critical insurance and whatnot. Is that something that as well you would have thought, okay, you know what, in hindsight, maybe, I mean, it depends,
Yeah,
of course. Sometimes, you know, work doesn't offer it. Some
for
places
sure.
offer, some don't. Yeah.
For sure. No, and you're right. And it's something to consider, definitely, because at the time where I was working, I didn't have an insurance package or benefits in that sense. But now, you know, now I work somewhere else that I do have these critical life insurance policies, and depending on your situation, you know, everyone's different, right? But if you're, you know, if you're the primary breadwinner of your family, and you have 3 young kids, and, you know, you have a spouse that stays at home to take care of them, and, you know, you have a mortgage, you have 2 car payments, you still have student loan, and you have all these things. It's like, what if something did happen to you? Would you be okay? And that's where, you know, I've never been a huge fan of these whole life insurance policies, because, you know, we can get into the nitty-gritty of them, but sometimes something as simple as a term life insurance policy just to protect you in case something happens, or, you know, these critical life policies that can at least pay you out something on a monthly basis or a one-time fee just in case something happens. So anything in terms of being able to prepare for the worst, I think is a good way to try to mitigate. And especially once you have kids and you have a family and people support you, you know, they depend on you. You know, if you're a young bachelor and you're living in the city and you don't have a dollar to your name, then you're okay. You'll be
the circumstances are different, right?
Exactly.
Philippe, what made you decide to exit, for the most part, the real estate market and then pretty much transition into the equities market?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny. There's a bit of things that happen. You know, there was being diagnosed with cancer was one of them. Quite frankly, you know, it was in and around that era that I realized that, you know, I had a lot of things to my name that, God forbid something happened to me, someone else would have to take care of that headache to a certain degree. And the headache part was something that was starting to happen. You know, I was having higher turnover on tenants. Some of them were not too kind to the properties, you know, so it was a lot of renovation costs in between tenants. And then the rules started changing. You know, we became, you know, especially in Ontario, a very tenant pro province, which is fine. I'm all for equality, but sometimes I feel like there was a bit of abuse going on, and I would just hear these horror stories from some of my you know, my friends in the industry, and it's like the last thing I want is to be stuck with a rental and not have someone pay for it for a year. You know, and I think after having, you know, I invested in real estate for over 10 years, maybe 12 years. You know, it's like, in a way, I made my money. You know, it's like I got to a point where I said, you know what, this is a good chunk of money. I can now exit this, reinvest it somewhere else, and now kind of reduce my stress levels, you know, have more flexibility on my time. You know, it's funny. I'll give you a small example. Every time I went on vacation, I had a call from a tenant. It's
No,
like,
that's the
hey,
worst stuff.
my hot water tank is leaking, or hey, the basement is flooded. And it's like, guys, I'm in the south of France right now. Like, I can't help you, you know, and then you're scrambling and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, I got to call this plumber, and it's a Saturday, and it's like, I'm 8 hours ahead of time. And
Yeah.
it was like, it was just becoming too much of a headache. So I said, you know what, you know, let me exit this. You know, I of course I kept my primary residence. And I'm like, you know what, I'm okay not owning real estate anymore, you know, and maybe it's changing too. Maybe I got the last tailwind of it, and you know, my properties tripled in value in 10 years, which I don't know if that's going to be the case for the next 10 years, but at least now I can go to bed and I know that, you know, no one's going to call me at 2 a.m. and let me know that
Something is
the place is
broken.
on fire.
And how's that transition been so far? Like overall, like
It's been good. You know what?
Yeah.
It's the shocking part is the capital gains. I will admit, you know, when you have a large gain in 1 year, and you're stuck with that bill, it was a hard pill to swallow
yeah,
to write over a check for
Yeah.
like the price of a brand new car to our good friend CRA. But you know, you have to pay to play is
Mhm.
is what I say sometimes. So it's okay.
And right now, investing in this stock market as a whole, percentage of your portfolio would you attribute to the more of a set it and forget it index funds, low cost ETFs, and what percentage to individual stocks?
Honestly, it was up until 2 weeks ago, I was 100% ETFs. I know you're a big advocate of XEQT, and quite frankly, I might as well just own XEQT, because I would have some BFE and some XIC and some XCF and XEC, and it's like, it's all XEQT stuff anyways. And then a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, maybe I just felt bored, and I'm like, I need to spend a bit of money and YOLO this. And so I took like, I don't know, a small percentage of my TFSA, and I just started buying like these random, like, you know, random individual stocks. And of course, they're all down like 12% right now. So I think I'm learning my lesson that, like, you know, I keep reverting back and forth over the decades of going like all in on ETFs and then a bit in stock, and then I sell it, go back in ETFs. But it's like my goal one day is to replace this poster here and just have XEQT and chill. And honestly, it's like, when you really think about it, it's like, I think we've solved investing as a whole. Like, I think a broad-based index fund that has exposure across the world, regardless of your allocation, you know, sure, you can over-allocate a bit to the US and a bit more to international and emerging and some Canadian stuff. It's like, there's nothing more to do. Like, this is as sophisticated as I think it's going to get. And it's a broad approach for anyone, whether you have 10,000 or a million. And I think it works. Quite frankly, yeah. I'm 99% ETFs, broad based, and I'm gonna stick to that. And I think that's the best approach for most people.
Yeah, and you've seen how it impacts you and frees up hopefully your time so that you don't have to worry about it. It seems like you do check Blossom on a more frequent basis as an app. Is that correct?
For sure. Yeah.
What do you get out of so what triggers you like wanting to actually check on the Blossom, read the post and whatnot? Essentially, what sort of values are you getting from the Blossom app?
Well, you know what? I've always been kind of this finance geek, you know, investing nerd my whole life. But there was never really a platform to talk about it. You know, I talk with friends and family, but you know, it's hard when people don't know more about it and they're not engaged. It's like, okay, you're kind of this lone wolf the black sheep of the family and things like that. And when I discovered Blossom, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like a bunch of people like me, just these nerds, these finance nerds that are just want to talk about like investing and saving and like dollar cost averaging and like allocations and all that. And I was like, this is great. So it's like you kind of find your clique, it's like your community. And the one part I love about it is that it's very positive. Like very few times, I mean, you always get these encounters with certain people that kind of like to diminish your work and all that. But for the most part, like we're all really like, we're all there to lift each other up, and that's what I love about it. And, over the years, I've come to join a lot of these events with Blossom, and I kind of, rubbed shoulders and became friends with the management team and with a lot of the content creators in the space. And I'm like, these are nice people. Like they're genuinely nice. Like I have nothing bad to say about anyone. And I'm like, this is refreshing. Like it's nice to be in this circle of friends that you have this one thing in common. And on top of that, you all want the best for each other. And you're like proud of saying like, oh, I got this and I did this. And, and it's like, this is great. I'm so happy for you. So it's definitely it's a good platform. It's a great community. And I reference it once a day. Like I whether I go on it, I post something on it, I talk about it to friends and family. And I think they're going to do very well over the years. So I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And it's an amazing support system in a way, right? Like, sometimes you want to go there and essentially run some ideas. Here's what I'm thinking, and here's some essentially candid perspective. But a lot of times I love that most of the time it's always that element of respect. Like,
yes,
folks chime in, not necessarily to judge or anything like that. It's mostly around, hey, have you considered this? Oh, actually, yeah, you're on the right path.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we are trying to. It's not like a good friend that gets what you're talking about, essentially, in a way. What were some of the aspects of spending that you would say, Philip, that you stopped spending on early on that really helped you compound your money faster? Essentially, things that maybe others tend to spend a lot of money on, but you were aware of it and didn't.
Yeah. Well, very simple. I spent money on nothing for a very long time.
Very frugal, huh?
Very frugal. And, very frugal, but to the point where it's not like I ever thought that I was
depriving yourself of something.
Exactly. I was never depriving myself from anything. It's just, you realize that we tend to waste money every day. Like, and I'm guilty of it now, but thankfully I'm at a point in my life where I can afford to waste a bit more money. My God, like you just look around your house and you're like, what is all this stuff that I have that, sure, this cost me $9 on Temu, and then I bought an extra one of these on Amazon. And it's like, we just accumulate for the sake of accumulating. It's like consumerism. And you realize you don't have to. And when I was young, especially when I was young and I was living with my parents, like I didn't feel the need, I didn't feel compelled to buy anything. It's like, what do I need? I live in a bedroom in my parents' house. I go to school. Like I don't need anything. So money was all put straight into the bank account, straight into my investment, straight into my savings. Like I had like a 90% savings rate when I was younger, and then as you get older, of course, lifestyle creep kicks in. You get married, or you have a spouse and partner who, wants plants in the house and new drapes, but it's okay. You get to a point in your life where you can start spending a bit of money, but I always encourage, when you're young, save as much as you can. Like, don't go and buy a brand new car when you're 20. You don't need 9 pairs of shoes. Like, just live with the strict minimum for those early years. As your portfolio grows, then you can start spending. And I was periodically doing that. Like, as my money grew, believe it or not, I've never touched my principal until this year, actually, when we bought a bigger home. So I had to pull a bit of money. But up until literally a month ago, I've never spent a single dollar from my portfolio. So I just let that compound and grow over 20 years. But what I did do is I just reduced my savings rates. Like I said, I was at a 90% at one point, then an 80%, then a 70, then a 40, 50, and then I usually hovered around like a 30% savings rate, in my mid 20s and my early 30s. And then now I'm like down to like a 10% savings rate, which
And I mean,
is like a regular person now.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, the fact that, your early life decisions allowed you to be at a position whereby, like, I would imagine, I mean, you probably have done the math, Philip, but depends, of course, what your expectation is. But you might be at a position whereby even if you didn't contribute $1, by the time that you, for example, hit the age, let's say 60, you might have well more than a typical person. Again,
Absolutely.
your ambitions and your life decision might, of course, impact that. You might just like, oh, I don't want to work until 65, as an example. Or if I do, I want to have my own private jet, if that's your thing. But point being, your sacrifices early on, sacrifice, quote unquote, because you might argue that, it was a very deliberate decision. And to your point, like, you didn't really necessarily go after things that, things that a lot of times society makes us believe that you always need the latest phone, the latest gadget and all of that. But reality, do you?
Exactly.
Same old
You're
phone,
right.
it still works.
And like I said, I think a lot of it is just wasting money because it's not, people say, oh, I want to have fun. It's like, you can still have fun, but you can still save money in the meantime, and to your point, the whole depriving, like I've never deprived myself. Like I go on vacation twice a year. I live in a beautiful home. Like I go out to very nice restaurants. If I need something, I go and buy it. Like I don't deprive myself on anything, but I limit myself in terms of the spending that I do on stuff. And one very, I think, overlooked example is a car. I think a lot of people, they look at cars as like an expense that well, I need a car, so I might as well just go buy a new car, and I might as well everyone has a $900 car payment anyways, that kind of mentality. I did it a little different, where when I first bought my car, I'm still driving the same car that I bought 13 years ago. So I drive a 2012 Civic EX with 201,000 kilometers on it.
Amazing.
But I have over 10 years of savings without having had to buy a new car.
Right. Yeah.
And I look at the opportunity cost. That's a big one, actually. Opportunity cost is huge. Because it's, what's the cost you're giving up to buy something versus what could you do with that money instead? And those, I have friends of mine that lease a brand new car. Every 2-3 years, they swap cars, they get a new car. And that $800, $900 payment is gone every month. They have a beautiful car, don't get me wrong, but that payment's gone. Now imagine putting away $900 a month into an index fund every month for years and years and years. That's the opportunity cost that I look at. And sure, my car is not the nicest on the street. I mean, it's still, it's clean. It works well. I have no issues. And the way I look at it, it's like I've been able to build my wealth simply because of these small decisions that I've made, where it's like, let me just keep my older car for the time being, invest the difference, the opportunity cost that I would have to buy to spend something else. And when you start doing that with every little thing, it starts to compound a bit, Like this shirt, for instance, I didn't buy this because it's my brother's hand-me-down. I have a younger brother who's taller than me, and he loves to buy clothing. So like once a year, I go in his closet and I'm like, tell me what you don't want. And he's like, yeah, I don't want this. It's like, perfect. And like, there's nothing wrong with this shirt, and it's like, I just saved $40. And I have no shame. I'm wearing my brother's hand-me-down shirt that he's probably worn 3 times in total. And you just realize, like, to your point, the phones, you don't need a brand new iPhone I have a friend, it's crazy. I have a lot of friends. No, I'm kidding. I have very few friends. Every year he buys a brand new phone. Like, without a doubt, it's like a disease. It's like he has to buy a brand new phone. So he buys them in cash. And these things are like $1,000 now, right? Like $1,200.
For sure.
And then he puts his old one on Facebook Marketplace to try to recoup the cost. And then bam, every year, $1,000. And you start doing that with phones, and you start doing that with cars, and you start doing that with furniture, and you start doing that with clothing. And it's like, then you're just spending 100% of your income. And then you're like, I don't make enough money. And it's like, well, you make 150 grand. I think you make enough money. It's just, where are you spending your money? That's the difference.
It's so important to keep a close eye on like where your money is going. And that's why I think I've had folks talking about it in some of my past conversation. So important, like especially taking time, maybe a month or maybe 2 months, track down your expenses, and at the end of it, reflect back, okay, well, what percentage of my amount was spent on what categories? And then you have an honest moment with yourself. Maybe, again, I'm not saying necessarily it's something I would do, but maybe for certain persons, like, certain expenditure items may really bring them joy. If that's intentional and they're aware of it, and again, to your earlier comment, like they've saved enough money for it that they can afford it because they don't want to also go bankrupt for that, knowing that all your finances is going down the drain because you're now spending a large portion of your money on some hobbies that you can't afford. Like all of us may have passions and hobbies, but again, importance of knowing, can I afford it? Or if not, can I still get the same joy or some similar sum of joys, maybe, but a reasonable amount of money that is not going to impact my finances in a negative way. Speaking of that, there are people on Blossom, Philippe, that sometimes you see them posting saying that, you know what, I'm late to the game, or I just got into investing and whatnot. What's your thought and advice to them if they feel like they're late?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that time is the most valuable asset when it comes to investing. So the earlier you start, the better it is. So like there's no doubt about that. And obviously as the years go by, you are missing out on, these growth periods. But it's not that it's ever too late. It's just that you may not get to where you want if you haven't started yet. Like the difference between starting at 20 versus starting at 40 is staggering. Because I mean, that's still a 20-year period. But it's like that 20-year-old, if he puts away $500 a month in XEQT, by the time he's 40, he might never need to put any money ever again. And he'll have a $5 million portfolio by the time he retires. Whereas the 40-year-old, if they're starting from scratch at zero and they're starting to put $500 a month, well, they'll have to wait until 60 to get to where the 20-year-old was at 40, So you're not late to the game. There is definitely, there is a missed opportunity that can happen. And that's why every time I meet a young person, I mean like 14, 15, 16, 17, I drill them for an hour and I say, listen, you're going to go get a job. You're going to go work. You're going to take your paycheck. You're going to split it in half. You're going to save that. You're going to open a Wealthsimple account. You're going to buy XEQT, and you're going to do that for every single paycheck nonstop for the next 40 years. And then spend the other 50%. And I think once you program them that way, they'll come back in 40 years and they'll thank you and they'll say, wow, thank you so much for telling me to save money early on. Because when you're young, I don't know if it's the frontal cortex that's not developed. It's just, you just don't care. It's like, whatever, I'm young. I'll do it later. Mm-hmm. Later, time goes by. Every day that goes by,
opportunity cost, right?
It's the opportunity cost. Exactly. So all this to say, it's not too late, but you definitely either have to, if you start later on, you have to increase those contributions to get to the point where you want, because that $100 a month or $200 a month won't get you far at 40 versus at 20.
Definitely. Philippe, what's one simple action that someone on Blossom or anybody on YouTube or anybody who's watching this conversation can take this month simple that you think by doing that can help them to change their financial trajectory?
It's funny when I have a lot of one-on-ones with friends, family, coworkers, and like oftentimes I just ask them what I think are very basic questions and they have no clue. They're like, I don't know. So I think sometimes it's just sitting down and like pen and paper in hand and just writing down like what does your financial picture look like? Like how much is in your checking account? Do you have a TFSA? Yes or no? How much is in there? What's it invested in? And when I have these conversations with people, sometimes they are mind blown that it's like they have a TFSA, but it's like sitting in a high interest savings account making 2%. And I'm like, okay, this is error number one. You have 50 grand sitting here making 2%. Like you are losing money every year to inflation. I'm like, we have to move this to a broad-based index fund like XEQT, or if you want VFE or whatever. I don't really care what people invest in per se, as long as they're invested. And it's like doing that financial audit, I think would help people. And it's funny, I did it the other day with a colleague of mine who, he's a little older than me. He's probably in his like early 50s, maybe mid 50s. And we were talking and, and he's like, you know what? I have a pension plan with my work. I should take a look. I haven't looked at it for 12 years is what he told me. So he called Manulife, he went over it and he realized that he was in like the risk adverse category. So he was like 70% bonds and 30% stocks, so his returns were like 5-6% a year. Not even, it was like 4 to 5%. And he's like, I switched it to now the high growth, like 70% ETFs and 30% bonds. And then he's like, you know what, thank you for letting me know, because I didn't realize this. Like, I just thought they were investing in whatever it is. So I think having a financial audit and just being a little bit more involved in your financial journey, like maybe try to understand certain concepts, like what is an ETF? What is a brokerage? You don't have to do the whole DIY, like open a Wealthsimple, do it yourself. Like if you want to do it through a big company, that's fine. But I think not investing is worse than investing.
Then in not probably
You know what I mean?
investing, you've been worried about maybe you were going to invest, but I can only put in, for example, $10 or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
And these days, Philip, like, I mean, it's just incredible. I'm just thinking about even myself. Like, I haven't been in Canada for that long, like, but ever since I came, like, I can see, like, over the past decade or so, how much more the financial industry has shifted, in a sense that, like, platforms like Wealthsimple, Questrade, and so many other ones, like being more innovative fintechs.
Yes.
Now these days, ability to buy fractional shares of not only stocks but also ETFs.
Yeah.
Automatic dividend reinvestments.
Yes.
So much so that a lot of the financial decisions and habits can be on autopilot, making it a lot easier. Like you can even have like dedicated amount of certain amounts from your money every certain days come out automatically and buy shares of a stock or portfolio for you, like an investment. Just incredible.
Investing, in my opinion, has been democratized. Like there are no more barriers to entry to invest. Like when I first wanted to buy my first stock, I kid you not, I was like 14 years old because I read, the Wealthy Barber, and then I started reading about Warren Buffett, and he was like Coca-Cola. I was like, oh, I want to buy Coca-Cola. I had like $1,000 to my name. I had to go to Edward Jones. I had to sit down with a financial advisor, and I had to say, like, I want to buy a stock in Coca-Cola. So he's like, okay, sure. I wrote a check. I gave it to him. I got a receipt from his secretary, and it's like, there was no online, like, I didn't know what the stock was doing that day. And then in like 6 months, he called me. He's like, hey, by the way, like your stock has gone up like 40%. He's like, do you want to add more money? And I was like, oh, you know what? It's fine. We'll just keep it there. So, but now it's like with this, like you can buy $1 million worth of anything on your phone in bed now. And like it's been so democratized and it's so easy. There's no reason not to do it. That's the way I look at it. And now, like, I get a little aggressive with people sometimes when they're like, oh, I don't know how to invest. It's so complicated. I'm like, show me your phone. Let's download Wealthsimple right now. Put in your information, download. Okay. Open a TFSA. Okay. There we go. Do reoccurring $100 a week, XCQT. Okay. Bam. Thank you. Keep doing that. Let's talk in 10 years. You're right. The technology has changed so much, and it's benefited people, especially in the investment game, that, it's cheap now I used to pay $13 per transaction. I was with Investor's Edge with CIBC. Every time I bought and sold something, $13 every time. $13, $13.
The trade part.
Now, I haven't paid a fee in 10 years. Like everything's free now with Wealthsimple or with Questrade, any of these platforms. And it's all been democratized. There's no barrier to entry. There's no reason not to do it. We'll put it that way.
It's just amazing. One thing that sometimes I wouldn't call it necessarily like concern, but maybe concerns me to some extent, though, is like with the democratization, which is fantastic, is that especially for those who are newer, and sometimes honestly not the newer ones, because it's like you have so many options, like a kid in a candy store. Oh, silver is going up, gold is going up. Yes. I'm going to get in, like meme stocks. We all remember that, weed stocks, all of that era. And I mean, let's be frank. It's not just the new investors. Sometimes even those that have been investing for a while get the craze of it, like, oh, this thing, I'm going to go buy it. And I mean, sometimes they learn their lesson the hard way. Sometimes they learn their lesson. Sometimes they get lucky and make a lot of money, and which is good and bad, because the bad side is like they get so overconfident in their abilities that now they're going to carry it over and potentially make a bigger mistake down the road.
Absolutely.
So that's one thought that comes to mind. But at the end of the day, I think the importance of education by these platforms is important too, cautioning folks.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why it's great to have platforms like Blossom too, where it's like there's an education part of it where, you can go through these modules and you can look at, what is an ETF? What is an index fund? What is asset allocation? And just understanding these little concepts, I think definitely can help people in the long run.
Yeah, it goes a long way. And Philippe, like in Canada, the brokerages that we have, once in a while, they try to compete for everybody, the investors, particularly the investors that I would say have a larger assets in their portfolios. Have you, or would you consider essentially taking advantage of these promotional offers that once in a while are out there to try to convince somebody from moving from one brokerage to another? Have you considered that or done
Oh,
that?
absolutely. I've done that. I have a slew of like Wealthsimple products. I mean, actually, I'm on a MacBook Pro right now that I got through Wealthsimple. So there's a way to save money.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I think I see no harm in any incentive. These banks, obviously, Wealthsimple, they'll have the incentives for you to move your money to them. But I'm all for the incentive of doing something positive, which is, sure, you're probably moving money from a big bank, a large institution that has high MERs and a lot of fees. And now you're switching it to an online brokerage, whether you want to do it DIY or you can buy one of their managed portfolios. But I'm all for doing anything that can help someone down the road with their financial journey. So I'm all for it. And I've taken plenty advantage of these promotions. And some of them are good. I'm not going to lie. Like I forget if it was 1 or 2%. I think it was like 2% cashback when I did a transfer, and the timing was impeccable because I had just sold my condo, and so I had like a crazy, like $500,000 like windfall of money from that property, and then it was in my checking account, and then like the promotion came out like 2 days later, like, okay, moving it to Wealthsimple now, and I was getting like $1,500 a month in like cash flow, residual income. It was like, oh, this is amazing.
I sold my rental property and have a new...
Yeah, now I have a new rental income. Yeah, this is perfect. Yeah. Everyone sell. So it was good. Yeah. Definitely. I'm all for it.
And I don't know if it's going to go forever, these type of promotion, but right now it seems like we are at a stage whereby a lot of these big firms are trying to essentially get the market share, right? And absolutely. I mean, they can afford it. I think for them, they're seeing it as more of a longer term play too. And I mean, platforms like the ones that we named, I think we probably have used them in different purposes. It's just from our personal experience. They're all great, like in their own aspect. I don't recall, I mean, probably when I first moved to Canada, not knowing much, I had to open up some accounts and it was one of those big banks. I don't have anything per se against big banks. I know they play their part, they serve their purpose, but I think when it comes to investing platforms, I just don't understand why they have to, like a few things, like, necessarily charge you for trades, and also like the conflict of interest. A lot of times they try to put you in their own mutual funds or things that are high fee, which ultimately is going to benefit them.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, banks have been like that. They've been ruthless over the years, and that's why they make so much money, right? They make money off everything and off the little guys. And it's great to have an alternative. I'm all for that for sure.
Definitely. Philip, we're going to go to the rapid fire questions shortly, and then a surprise question at the end. But before I go there, I think I saw you recently post on Blossom. You were encouraging that or sharing that you have started posting more commonly now, regularly on I think Instagram.
Instagram, TikTok. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more. What's the focus going to be on there?
You know what? I have this comedic aspect to me. Sometimes I joke I should have been like a stand-up comic. I'm not that funny, but I like to think I'm funny. And so I started making these kind of comedic personal finance videos to kind of at least give a bit of exposure to things. Maybe someone can think about it, about investing or saving. And some of it is just really like, stupid comedy. But at the end of all of them, or at least in the caption, I always kind of reinforce a concept of like, listen, like, it's important to budget sometimes, and it's important to look at your finances, important to invest for the future. I talk a lot about wealth creation because everyone does it differently. Like I met a lot of people in my life that have become very wealthy, and it's not necessarily because of investing. Sometimes they just started a business and they were really good at that business. But I think investing is the sure way for the 99% of people to build wealth. And without anything crazy, you don't have to be a big shot CEO making $1 million a year. Like, I know people who've made, very modest incomes their whole life and just put away a certain amount of money every year. And you do that for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And your portfolio just balloons into millions of dollars by the time you retire. And it's like, why wouldn't you do it? You're benefiting your future, your personal future, And this could be for generations to come too. You know, I sometimes I talk about, you know, I never inherited anything from my grandparents. I just inherited generational trauma, you know, but it would be great to inherit, like, it'd be great to live in a generation where now we can pass on from generation to generation these wealth accumulating vehicles, you know, and like these trust accounts where I can pass on to my children couple $1 million, and then that grows to $10 million over the course of their lifetime, and they can utilize some of it and so forth. So,
But also those lessons, I would say, Philip, like, you know, I mean, part of it is the money aspect of it that you can pass on, but also I would say, like, all those colleagues that you're talking to, all those young people that, you know, you take your time, because, you know, time is money. The fact that you're taking the time, you're showing interest in them and trying to help essentially educate them, like, you know, having their mindset be exposed to alternatives that they may not have thought about, because, you know, when you're young, you don't know much. You just probably see your friends at school or whatnot, what they do. I guess that's probably the norm, whereas you're saying that doesn't have to be the norm. There are a different way that you can think of early on. Those lessons, super powerful, because it's almost like an important decision point, right? If you adjust your course, your path to some extent, to some degree, it's just going to end up in a totally different way over the years, in the 20 years or 30 years that they're going to have ahead of them. So
absolutely.
I think that's also super powerful as well that you're doing. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And what's the handle on Instagram?
Everything is at Flip Flop Finance. That's just it's the name I'm going to stick to now.
Awesome. Smart of you to
Instagram,
secure them all of them
TikTok.
early on.
Yeah, exactly. I should get a domain for that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Okay, so I'll have some quick rapid fire questions. Some are finance related, some are not necessarily. But I'm a travel guy. I love traveling, so the first one is going to be around that.
Too.
What has been your most memorable trip so far?
Most memorable trip. You know what? That's a tough one because I do love traveling, but I know this is rapid fire. So I'm going to say Barcelona, Spain. That's definitely been my most memorable trip with my spouse.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Best money habit that you have?
Best money habit. Paying yourself first. Like before you get paid, putting away a certain amount of money and putting away as much as possible. So if it has to be 50%, put away 50% every 2 weeks of your paycheck and invest it, and you'll thank me.
What does rich actually mean to you now?
I mean, health is definitely a big one, but I think just calmness, you know, like overall, like freedom of everything. Like it's like I work 9 to 5. If I lose my job tomorrow, I'll be okay. It's like, I'm okay, you know, and if my car breaks down and I need to buy a brand new one, I'll be okay. So it's just having that like peace of mind is to me is rich.
That financial independence has given you the optionality and calmness. That's amazing to see as well as you speak about it. One book that every investor you think should read.
You know what? I have my little book collection right here.
Yeah.
You know what? There's a really simple one that I bought at Costco once, and it's not a famous book or anything. It's called The Rules to Wealth. It's 2nd edition by Templar. It's just like 100 pages. And it's like 1-page little snippets of information about building wealth. You know, whether it's like paying yourself first, you know, save, you know, or make more than you spend, or spend less than you make. And it's just like easy, digestible, like tips to build wealth. That's amazing. It's like, you know what? That's all it is at the end of the day. It's these like micro decisions you make. And this book was just very easy to digest, very easy to read. And it's like 100 different tips on how to do these things. So I'll send you a picture so you can post it up here.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. That would be fantastic. Yeah. Do you, I see, as you said, like a few books behind you. Are you more of a hard copy, paper copy books or audiobooks or both?
You know what? A bit of both.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm not a big reader to begin with. Oftentimes I digest
in different
content through, you know, YouTube videos and a lot of articles.
Yeah.
And when Money Sense had their magazines, that's what I used to read a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Yes. I think I'm like you in a way, like, you know, not a big paper book guy, but a few books that I really enjoyed, then I do have them, but a lot of contents in different formats. Podcasts, definitely.
Yeah.
If you listen to podcasts once in a while, what is your favorite podcast, whether money or non-money related?
Yes. You know what? The Rational Reminder podcast with Ben Felix. And it's a little hard to follow sometimes, you know, it's, you know, you got to give yourself a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it just helps me like stay grounded and see like how, you know, investing is much easier than we think. It's just about it's the psychology, of investing. It's not really dollars and cents and how do I chase the next best thing. It's like, it's about staying focused, putting away the money. We've solved investing. I like the Rational Reminder podcast.
Best memory from college days, school days
Ooh, college days.
that you can share.
Well, yeah. My last year of university, Avicii came to my school and performed like an hour. I don't know if you're familiar with Avicii,
No.
but at one point he was like the biggest DJ in the world.
Really?
And
Oh,
he
wow.
unfortunately passed away since. But
Okay.
he came to our university and started and played,
For me.
what was the song? I think Levels it was. It's such
Incredible.
it's such a infinite song in the EDM world. So I got to say like that. And that was like my last year. So it was like, actually, I think I had graduated and I went back for Frosh that week. I think that's what it was. So it's like, it was like a good way to end university. It was like, now life, there's a new chapter of life now.
Yeah.
So.
And what does financial independence mean to you, essentially, in a word, if you had to describe it?
Yeah, to me, it's just freedom. Like it's just peace of mind. It's knowing that you're going to be okay, regardless of what happens. Like money is one less thing you have to stress about. Now it's, we all have our own problems, whether it's our, eventually health problems or relationship problems or, parents and, children and things like that. But if money is one thing I no longer have to think about, that to me is the financial independence that I strive for.
Yeah, definitely so powerful. I want to go for the surprise question, but before I do so, I want to actually disclose this on the video. Typically, I always do my research beforehand on my guests before I invite them. First of all, knowing that, okay, this is the guest I want to bring on my show, reach out to them and make sure they're comfortable with the decision. And what I would do, based on my research, I have some of a personalized questions, just like what you saw today, but I send it to them ahead of time just to make sure they're comfortable with the questions and, they have a chance to prepare. Today, I realized, I don't know, it's just probably that being a newer dad-ish kind of mentality or mindset or like being busy with all work and whatnot, realize like, oh shoot, I don't think I ever actually sent the question, even if I had mentioned to Philip that I'm going to send the question. So I apologize for that. All of that to say, I guess all of the questions I asked today were surprise questions, but this one is actually coming from my previous guest. So to speak, that's how I call it the surprise question. Otherwise, I know that everything was a surprise to you in that regard, but you did fantastic, Philip. I must say that for sure. Yeah, and that question is, what is the sign of true intelligence in your perspective?
True intelligence. I'm not a really smart person, so that doesn't help.
But I think you are.
I think humility is probably a big one. It's knowing that even if you know something, you can sit back and realize that maybe you don't know everything, and just like the willingness to keep learning about anything, and it's like I like to sometimes think that I know everything about personal finance or investing, but then I get caught off guard and someone is asking me a question and I'm like, I don't know that one actually. And I have to go and look it up. And so it's the humility of knowing that you don't know everything. And I have a very big sarcastic sense of humor. So sometimes I come across as having a bit of like an arrogant, condescending comments and things like that. But deep down inside, like I know that I know nothing. And I think that's one of it. I think when I meet someone that's very humble and I kind of envy their perspective of life and seeing like, wow, like I know that you know a lot more than what you're showing, but you're just keeping it to yourself and you're making sure that you're not overly, expressing.
Exuding it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a fantastic answer. And what a great way to wrap this conversation. Thank you so much, Philip, for accepting my invite in the first place, coming on the show, sharing your perspectives, your knowledge, your life lessons with us so transparently. I really enjoy interacting with you on Blossom, and definitely soon after this call, I'm going to go and subscribe to you if I'm not done already, which I don't recall. On Instagram, I think those skits that you're going to make is going to be fantastic for sure.
Yeah, we're going to work on them for sure. It's I have my finance background here.
So I love it.
We'll got to utilize.
And the plant looks good behind you, I must say.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, it's a nice, it's a nice banana. I think birds of paradise. I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's
That's awesome.
Fresh air. Gives us fresh air.
That's awesome. Any final words before we wrap up? Anything that you wish I asked you but I didn't? Philippe?
No, you know what? I thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the great work you're putting in. Like, this is, I know that this takes a lot of time out of your time, a lot of time out of your life, and you have a newborn too, and that doesn't help, but I think this provides a lot of value to people, because sometimes people don't know where to go to learn about personal finance and investing, and having people like yourself spreading this knowledge and having guests on and giving people different perspectives, I think is very important. So I appreciate you doing this. It's a little bit of philanthropy in a sense when you think about it.
I appreciate that.
You're teaching things that weren't taught to us, unfortunately, and especially in school. And so it's important for people to learn as much as they can when it comes to
I appreciate that, Philippe. To be honest with you, I always think about it that when I'm having these conversations, I'm the person that first is learning from this myself. So I see it as like every time after these interviews, I'm so pumped. I think I learn, and there are always takeaways. Like I know with different guests, there's something that usually I take away and try to implement. Like whether it's like a podcast that they shared, the book that you just mentioned, or the Instagram post as an example, or like the energy that the Canadian T-shirt Adrian brings to the table. Everybody, and that's I think life is so powerful because everybody has their own journey, their whole journey that they went in life to get to the point they are. So I thought, like, if I'm getting value from it, I think others hopefully can. And honestly, I'm sure, like, with the caliber of the guests that I have, such as yourself, I'm hoping it adds actually values to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Philippe. We definitely will stay in touch, and I'll talk to you later.
Amazing. Thank you, Mo. Appreciate it.